enterprise services are regarded as a major 5G business development opportunity for communication service providers, and security requirements and security business models will play a key role in shaping that market. That's why Fortinet asked TelecomTV, in association with research firm HardenStance and ETSI, to conduct a survey of telecom sector executives that would provide insight into the 5G enterprise services sector. And we're here today to discuss some of the outcomes of that survey. And joining me for this discussion are Tristan Morgan, Director of Security Advisory Services at BT, Patrick Donegan, Founder and Principal Analyst at HardenStance, Adrian Scrase, CTO at ETSI, and Ronen Shpirer, Director of Solutions Marketing at Fortinet. So welcome everybody. So let's get stuck into the discussion about the outcome of this survey and the 5G enterprise services market. So the survey results show that a vast majority, in fact more than 90% of respondents, believe that 5G will help CSPs to grow their enterprise services ARPU. So do you think that's realistic, or is that a bit too bullish? So Patrick, if we can start off with you on this one.
Yeah, absolutely, with pleasure. I think that the numbers were high, but I would expect that. I mean, if we're not going to be able to leverage 5G to grow enterprise services revenues, you could almost ask the question, why are we even bothering? It would just be, faster mobile broadband. So obviously the tool sets that 5G, particularly the 5G standalone iteration, the tool sets that provides, I'm thinking especially in terms of network slicing, the sheer volumes of devices that are potentially going to be deployed, the potential to do cleverer things to generate new data from analytics distributed throughout the network. When you think of all those tool sets, if we can bring those together in constructive, profitable ways, then of course, why wouldn't we be able to grow enterprise service revenue? So the bullishness of the audience sample survey doesn't surprise me at all, and I think it's appropriate.
Okay, excellent. Anybody else thinking that that's a little bit too high, or even not high enough? More than 90%? Yes, Ronen.
I would like to add to what Patrick said. 5G is a foundation, and it's a foundation that allows MNOs, mobile network operators, to actually go and offer a set of services or value-added services on top of 5G. So they can build an entire ecosystem that can actually address specific verticals, a specific segment, a specific use case. And when you do that, when you provide more than just the basic services that 5G brings to bear, then you can generate revenue and you can increase significantly the ARPU that you can generate from the business market. Of course, that has to be built. That has to be something that you invest in, something that you take a bit of risk doing so, but that this is the potential of actually raising significantly the ARPU from the business market.
So let's move on now. How important is it that CSPs tailor their 5G-enabled enterprise services for the needs of specific industry verticals, or can one size fit all? So Tristan, let's start with you here.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, here in BT, we really see 5G as being a truly transformational technology. But when you think about the huge range of use cases for 5G, so ranging from connected cars, connected cities, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, consumer, and all the use cases that surround that. So some will require very low latency, so therefore edge computing, etc., and services will be of paramount importance. Equally, for other devices will require very low power, low communication and encryption overhead. So you extrapolate that out, the billions of sensors means that actually creating a one-size-fits-all 5G network that caters to everything across that spectrum is going to be particularly difficult. But that said, when you're looking at the underlying architectures, they need to be built to try and optimize for the low latency and the high bandwidth kind of requirements. Now, an area that's really keen and a key area for myself is around security. And that's where I think we also then need to differentiate, because when we look at security against the use cases I just mentioned, it's very different depending upon the sector, the geography, and indeed the types of location that they're operating in. So, I would advocate across all of this, looking at it at a sector and a use case model.
Yeah, absolutely. Ronen, you wanted to come in there.
Adding to what Tristan has said, I think that a lot of the enterprise markets and segments that are looking into or starting to implement 5G in one way or another are not really sure. I mean, they know that 5G can bring benefit, but they're not really sure what they can do with it, how it's going to bring the benefit and the innovation and the agility and the other great things that potentially it can bring. So I think the ability of the operators to actually tailor 5G per use case or per market segment can really help enterprises pick up on these services. It can help them understand, what they can do and what they can achieve. And on the other end, being able to actually understand the different requirements of each vertical and each industry, because there are different, there are common requirements, but the detailed requirements and the detailed use cases are different. The ability for an operator to understand that and to do the tweaks and fine-tuning that is required to actually meet these needs, these differentiated needs, is extremely important for its ability to success and communicate and win the business of these segments.
Yes, this is what we're hearing a lot from the industry, that there needs to be a great deal of quite detailed understanding of the actual requirements of each industry vertical and how they differ slightly there. Moving on a little bit more in detail into the security value propositions, to what extent will a mobile operator's security value proposition enable it to gain the trust of enterprises seeking to use 5G-enabled services? What has the industry learned, if anything, from its 4G-enabled business service experience? So, Ronen, let's start with you on this one.
So this is. I don't think that we can really use 4G as an example, as a baseline, as a benchmark, because 4G was mostly targeting the consumer market, and even for enterprises, you gave 4G provided mobility and provided some backup services for wide area network connectivity. That was the majority of the services. That was the bulk. That was the foundation. 5G is different. So 5G is different in the fact that it's going to be so critical in enterprise ability to drive innovation, to drive services, to drive productivity, new products. So, the realm of security and what security needs to be done is completely different. So I think we cannot really take example for 4G in previous mobile generations. What we need to understand is that there are two things which I think put an emphasis on security in 5G. The first thing is that we're talking about from the MNO, from the mobile network operator perspective. This is a much more complex environment. It's distributed. It's virtualized. It uses standard-based internet protocol. It uses API communication and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of complexity, and complexity always opens more doors to risk. It enhances, it enlarges the attack surface. So the operators need to be aware of that, and they need to make sure that, first of all, they implement what the 3GPP and ETSI have put in place as recommendation standards to meet the security challenges. The other aspect is, as enterprises turn to 5G and 5G becomes so critical in their operations, they need to make sure, they need to be convinced that it is secure, that the different services they're using beyond connectivity are there. They have continuity and they have the integrity that they need in order to do it. So I think that from 5G perspective, we have now an augmented role of security. One, how do I secure the infrastructure itself and the services? for continuity and integrity. That was similar to 4G, but now we have a different technology. The other one is, how do I take 5G and actually deliver security to my customer, to the specific use cases, to the specific market segments, so they have the confidence that I can actually go out and use my services. And of course, when I do that, I can monetize these security services. So I can start and provide security services or manage security services to my customers, to these use cases, and therefore, again, augment the value and generate more revenue and more value from 5G and its services.
So are we thinking this is the primary criterion to gain the trust of enterprises, Tristan?
So it's certainly, and we believe that the security is probably one of the primary considerations when looking at 5G. And if you think about the range of uses, it's ever increasingly going to become part of our critical national infrastructure for delivery of key services and businesses. Now, when you think about the security perimeter of an organization, it's just one part of it. So other connectivity challenges, the use of the hyperscalers and public cloud and the delivery of those. And so what we look at is saying actually that the inherent security that we need to place within 5G is and needs to be elevated to ensure that as that security perimeter changes and augments, that customers have the right trust, they have the right visibility and control around where is data flowing, how's it being managed, and ensuring they have the right defenses and criteria to manage that.
So let's move on now to the 3GPP specifications. How important are the 3GPP's secure by design 5G features to the development of future enterprise services? And are these features enough? So Adrian, let's start with you on this one.
That's a very good question, Ray. And what I would say is that in previous generations, 2G, 3G, 4G, we tended to design the new radio, design the core network, and then try and figure out how to secure it. When we started the 5G work program in 2015, we understood that we were actually aiming at industry sectors that had far more demanding security requirements, sectors like health industry, like the financial industry, and that we had to have total trust and absolute secure systems in mind, which is exactly what we did. What I would say is that whilst we've done a huge amount in securing the networks from a standardization point of view, that is only really the starting point. So 3GPP can do an awful lot in ensuring we have the standards in place, but they must be complemented by a secure approach to the way that those standards are then deployed, and a secure approach to the way in which the operations of the operators are actually run. So we cannot think that because 3GPP has written security standards, that's the end of the story. It's really only the beginning of the story. Okay,
excellent. Patrick?
Yeah, I'd just like to maybe add to that a little bit, amplify it a smidgen. There was a pretty notorious attack by Chinese-based hackers during the course of last year. If you look at it if you Google it, you'll find that it was called Operation Soft Cell. And what that did was to exploit a vulnerability in a group of telcos' public-facing websites. It extracted call data records from a group of telcos, which is a pretty heinous offense on the part of a telco. The absence of security, the patching of those servers had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with 3GPP. It was completely outside of 3GPP's jurisdiction. So to Adrian's point, of course, 3GPP security is enormously important. But if you do fantastic 3GPP security and then your basic sub-security hygiene is lacking, that's the equivalent of having, the front of your house protected by, a 24-inch steel door, machine gun turrets and security guards, whilst you leave your back door open. So 3GPP is enormously important, but to Adrian's point, it's not the be-all and end-all.
No, absolutely. And of course, while we're talking here about 5G enterprise services, there's many other considerations that are linked to this and need to be taken in mind. Ronen, yes. Would you like to?
Yeah, and again, I want to bring up the fact that we should also think about, and I think Patrick alluded to it, the entire ecosystem. So it's more than just the 5G infrastructure itself. It's more than just the radio. It's more than just the core. So we need to think about the multi-access edge domain. We need to think about the applications we're going to put there. We need to think about how we interface with partners through APIs. So it's a very complex environment, and there are things which are beyond the scope of what 3GPP as recommended and dictated from a security perspective that will have an impact on the service that 5G operators can provide to business customers. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And another important point that Adrian mentioned, but I think it's very important because we're seeing it happening right now, is that, for example, operators are now implementing the 5G core. So they're moving from the non-standalone to standalone environments. And while they're doing it, in at least the first versions, they are not implementing some of what is recommended by 3GPP, for example, the TLS encryption between the network functions in the core. So it's extremely important that MNOs adhere to what 3GPP and ETSI are formulated, and it's very important that that enterprises themselves understand that they have the right they are to rely on 5G to come to the provider and say, you have to give us some guarantee about security if we really are to depend on you.
Okay. Yeah, interesting point there, Ronen. And so you mentioned the core there. So let's turn to that. I mean, should mobile operators wait until they have a 5G standalone core platform before they reveal or offer 5G specific enterprise services? So Tristan, what do you think about this?
I mean, the first thing I would say, obviously in the utopia world, then potentially, but the time and the investment to do so means that I think many customers, consumers of 5G technology would actually miss out on the incremental benefits as you migrate from 4 into 5G. The other thing to bear in mind is that businesses, organizations, consumers don't just overnight change out their handsets, their capability that will use this technology to be 5G. And so what that says to me, and certainly our position, is that journey in migrating and building out the 5G core, we can use to take great learnings about deployment, about security use cases, and working with customers and industry to refine those as it happens.
Okay, excellent points, Tristan. So should we move on? Adrian, yes.
I'd like to pick up on that point, if I may, because what we are learning over time is that there are an awful lot of very intelligent people out there who are devoting their time to trying to find the flaws in our systems. What we've put in place is a mechanism where they can report vulnerabilities they may find. It's called Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure, and it's something that both ETSI and 3GPP have now implemented. So where we have academia, research students who are looking for vulnerabilities, if they discover them, it's very easy for them to disclose them to us. They can do that either in a confidential way, or they can do that, and if it's found to be true, we will give them credit for having found that. So it's really opening up our eyes and saying, well, if anybody can see weaknesses in our systems, let's have an easy way for them to report that so we can analyze and fix those as quickly as we can.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adrian. So the survey results threw up some very interesting insights into whether mobile operators should insist on providing full stack end-to-end security with their 5G enterprise services, with almost 40% of respondents saying they should, while almost 50% of respondents thought a shared responsibility model was a better way forward. Any surprises in this feedback from these results? Ronen?
Well, for me, there was a bit of surprise because I'm surprised at how strong the answer was for an end-to-end security stack, and I would go natively more to the shared responsibility model, because that offers a lot of flexibility. What I think is that, again, one aspect of 5G security is, how do I, as an operator, secure the infrastructure so I have service continuity, availability, integrity. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, how do I go beyond that and secure the use case and to secure the data, the applications, the entire ecosystem that a customer builds upon my services, whether it's a managed service that I provide, whether it's something that they build on top of, for example, my multi-access edge infrastructure, or there's something they do it by themselves. And here, I find it very difficult for enterprise to accept that he's forced to take whatever security solutions and services, forced to take them from the operator, maybe because he thinks that they're not enough or not appropriate, or maybe he just wants to do it himself because he doesn't trust the operator possibility or capabilities to provide the appropriate type of visibility and accountability and so on and so forth. So I think that there would definitely, as we go forward, be a sort of a shared model, shared responsibility model, which also means from the operator perspective that they need to be prepared to that, because it doesn't just mean that, yes, you can implement your own security, but you need to provide the tools and you need to provide the right models in order to be able to allow them to do it and co-work and maybe co-manage security with your own security mechanism and infrastructure in place.
Okay, thanks, Ronen. Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, I'll amplify that if I may. I was likewise struck, as Ronen was, by the survey response. And I was a little bit reminded that at the age of 53, and despite the fact that I'm fat and overweight, I still have plans to score the winning goal for Arsenal in the FA Cup final. And I guess what I'm pointing to is there is, I think, a substantial delta between what telcos are saying that they want and plan on doing and what they're actually going to do. What's going to be the actual say-do ratio, or where's the rubber going to actually meet the road? I think at this point, in what is an immature market, telcos are making very sort of grand statements about the security that they're going to provide. I doubt very much that we're going to see telcos actually live up to the sort of grand statements that they're making. I think some will, but I think many won't. At the moment, we're at statement time and projection time. Let's see how we go when it comes to actually implementing the model, figuring out the cost, figuring out the margin, figuring out the end-to-end security requirements. I think it's going to be a struggle for a lot of those that are currently saying rather brazenly that this is what they're going to do.
Yes, well, it's definitely early days, Patrick. It's late days for your football career, but definitely early days in 5G security. But Tristan, do you want to come in on that at all?
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to come in on 2 points. One is around the full stack around security, and I think there is an onus actually on organisations to ensure that the consumption of 5G services, people are always understanding the inherent risks and need for additional overlay security controls. But we need to recognise that the significant and the varied ways in which it's going to be used means actually that the full stack terminology around security controls is a very, very broad term. So it ranges everything from endpoint through to full on advanced threat hunting capability. And that's where we look at the services. 5G is just one part of actually the delivery of services across a whole organization's security and risk posture. And that's where things like the shared responsibility model are important, where data is no longer within the perimeter and control of an organization.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thanks, Tristan. So we're coming towards the end of our discussion today, but we've got time for one more question. And it's a bit of a broader question here. What needs more focus and attention ahead of the expected 5G enterprise services boom? Is it standards-based security architectures or the day-to-day security operations in telcos, or should it be both? So, Patrick, I know this is right up your street.
Yeah, well, I mean, having done the survey, I don't mind sharing with you that I was slightly annoyed at the outcome, in the sense that a lot of people said that day-to-day operations and the 3GPP stuff are equally important, and I can sort of see why you would say that, because it feels right. But I would have to say, only 20% of people said that improving telco operations, day-to-day operations, was the fundamental, and that's where I sit. To give another example, if I'm in telco operations, and I'm befriended by a gorgeous-looking young thing on LinkedIn who befriends me over several months, and we get chatting, and we find out we have so much in common, and she's going to come to London sometime soon, and then one day she sends me a link I should look at because there's a really interesting document like that. If she gets into my telco operations environment by means of that technique, I have been horribly, horribly compromised. And that the hackers on the other side have a means to access the aspects of the telco operations environment. That is a very substantial risk, and the telco community is not paying nearly enough attention to that whole area. So that's an area that I think requires much more focus than the 3GPP domain, which is well understood. I recognize, I think it was Ronen said that, some people aren't implementing all of the security features that are there, but that at least is a well-known domain. It's a well-known requirement. But the other aspects of regular operational security are not getting anywhere near enough attention. And I think that's much more important in my view, although the survey audience didn't seem to agree with me.
Okay. Anybody else in Patrick's camp? Tristan?
Yeah, I mean, I would say they've got to be coordinated, right? But fundamentally, you've got to ensure that your day-to-day operations and the controls that you have in your network are up to scratch, because otherwise it's a very dangerous place to try and build upon and deploy additional and the uses around 5G services.
Okay, excellent. And Ronen?
Yeah, another aspect is, and this talking about a specific use case, but I think it's a use case that is very, very proves to be the one that gains a lot of traction right now, and that is non-public networks or private 5G mobile networks, so we want to call it. And so when MNOs, and let's take that example where MNOs build that type of a solution for an enterprise, right? There's the operational part of it. So definitely security infrastructure itself is extremely important. Implementing the standards, building the right security on top of that takes care of visibility and control where the standards are not applicable, securing, the customer use case, the customer environment, but actually being able to take that and manage and operate all of that is something which is extremely important, not just from the fact that the operation and management needs to be secured, because without that, we're in trouble. It's the entire security aspect of that service need to be provided. So, not just provide the security infrastructure and services, but the visibility, what does it mean, the correlation, trends, because that will help not only the operator to evolve its security and evolve its ecosystem, but also the enterprises that are using these services. These are very, very valuable tools. And if we look again at non-public networks, most of the customers, most of the enterprises who are actually going that direction are industrial environments. These environments are mostly based on operational technology. They had a very long history where security for them is something which is very, very different than security for IT and security for 5G. And they need guidance and they need help. And the only way to be able to do it is actually by providing also, the operational management and visibility and insight of the security infrastructure and services as part of, in this example, a non-public network.
Okay, so it's not that the standards-based security architectures aren't important, It's that there's a lot more focus needs to be given to the other aspects of security strategies. Adrian, would you agree with that? Do you think that there does need to be a broader sweep here, more attention paid to the broader aspects of telco security?
Yes, I do. But what I think I would rather stress is the need for the feedback, because if we have security standards, we have a secure approach to deployment, and we have a secure approach to operations, what happens when it goes wrong? And I think this is where we need to ensure a very close coordinated feedback loop. So we know that our networks are never going to be 100% secure. We know that going forward. What we need to have in place is a very robust way to capture the breaches and make sure we do feedback and make the corrective measures and share that knowledge openly, so that as a community we can improve our security year on year. So I think it's very much it's not one or the other. You need to have all three of those components in place and a very good feedback loop.
So Adrian, I think that's a great way to end today's panel, and thanks very much for everybody joining in with today's panel discussion. And just a reminder to everybody watching that the security report is available for download on TelecomTV. So thanks for watching, and thanks everybody again for taking part in today's panel.